Welcome to a Marketing Sherpa webinar. Today we are going to be talking about the top takeaways from Email Summit 2013. If you weren't able to attend, if we saw you there, it'd be great to get a wrap up and hear some of those things. Joining me today is Courtney Eckerly, Marketing Sherpa reporter. She reports for our email marketing beat, and I'm sure you've seen her name and, more importantly, her case studies very often if you subscribe to our email marketing newsletter. Thanks for joining us, Courtney.
Thanks, Dan.
I'm Daniel Bursing, the Director of Editorial Content at MECLabs. I work on a lot of content for Marketing Sherpa and MECLabs, such as our events, which we're going to be talking about shortly. Also want to tell you, Email Summit, the great thing about Email Summit is not all of the wisdom comes from the stage. There's a lot of wisdom out there in the audience, and it's great to see in that live event marketers interacting with each other, learning from each other, asking questions. The best way we can replicate that is with #SherpaWebinar on Twitter. So we'd love to hear your questions through #SherpaWebinar. We'd love to see you say what was most effective for you, what works, what doesn't in email marketing from #SherpaWebinar. If you attended, use #SherpaWebinar. Let us know about some of your lessons. And one of the reasons I am pushing this so hard is this is actually the second webinar today for Courtney and I. And in the last webinar, no joke, Courtney can back me up, someone offered me a Corvette through the hashtag. So I'm still trying to figure out if I'm actually going to get that Corvette, but I do encourage people to use that hashtag. So let's put Email Summit into, give you a deeper understanding of it. So there's about 750 email marketers joining us at the Paris Hotel in Las Vegas a few weeks ago. A lot of brand-side marketers on stage, some key thought leaders like Jay Baer, Flint McLaughlin. And the way we get to an email summit is we start with research. We start with our benchmark reports where we ask you marketers what really works. Then we write case studies about getting closer and interviewing in-depth marketers what really works. And that eventually leads us to our live events like our summits where we can have brand-side marketers like you on stage and teach what really works. So in presenting Email Summit to you today, Courtney and I had a bit of a conundrum, right? Email Summit is several days, hours and hours and hours of data. How do we work that into half an hour? So Courtney started with 80 slides. And so what we wanted to ask you, we've narrowed that down, I promise. What we wanted to ask you, we've got a poll right here, right now. If you could launch that poll, John, unless I just did. There we go. We got a poll right here, right now. We wanted to know from you, what would you like from today's Marketing Sherpa webinar? Do you want a fast presentation with lots of ideas? There's lots of ideas from Email Summit. We can go through lots of different ideas and tell you what really worked, or a slower presentation where we go more in depth with fewer webinars. So let me take a look. I'm going to close this out here, and let's see if they can see the results. And I can see wow, can they display the results there? The fast webinar overwhelmingly won. I'd say that's about, there we go, 92.3% of you want a fast presentation with lots of ideas. All right, Courtney?
All right, everyone, buckle your seatbelts.
Turn on the afterburners. Let's go.
All right, well, our first takeaway is email and social media work better together than they do apart. And are we having trouble turning the slide?
No, we're trying to change the slide here. Let's see. The presentation seems a little stuck.
Uh-oh, this is not going to work out well for our quick pace.
If you're voting, stop voting. We're trying to close this. Can you advance it to the next slide, John?
It's actually advancing on my screen.
Okay.
Oh, okay. This is ahead.
Yeah, keep going.
All right, well, the first presentation we have, more alike than different. Why email is Madonna and Facebook is Lady Gaga. So this was by Jay Baer, the author of The Now Revolution, and our keynote. And he said, email is Madonna, the original but somewhat tired and downtrodden. Lady Gaga is Facebook. The exact same thing, but with a fresh coat of paint. So what he had to say was, ultimately email and social media have a lot in common, and they have an important part to play in the conversation between company and consumer. They're strategically, operationally, and tactically aligned. If they aren't, they should be. Anytime that you send an email or a Facebook update or a tweet or anything else, the chances that one consumer will see that one piece of information is relatively slim. So because of that, email and social media need to work together in order to improve those odds when sending a communication that a consumer is going to see it. So what he said is surround your customers with options to interact with your brand, and the chances that you'll be able to interact with them will go up considerably. So he displayed the metric, how similar the metrics are between email and Facebook. So subscribes or likes, unsubscribes or hides and unlikes, so on and so forth. And the way you communicate with your customers are only slightly different. He said email are the conversations that are urgent and important. Social media are the conversations that are less urgent and less important, but they still have a place.
He also gave some examples for how can you combine those two. We hear this challenge often. So one way is have an email opt-in via your Facebook tab, right? If people are following you on Facebook, maybe they also, if they're liking you on Facebook, maybe they also want to subscribe to your emails. See, also another way to increase your opt-in conversion rate is with social sign-in. If you're not familiar with social sign-in, this is the ability for people to bypass your landing page or bypass logging in with a username and a password and just to sign in with their Facebook account or their Twitter account. And then you can also get some more information and some more analytics and data from them. And of course, our friends at Facebook get more information that way too, which is why they're promoting it. A great way, too, is combine time of day and day of week testing. If you're noticing on Facebook that at certain times of the day you're getting a lot of likes, there's a lot of interaction, those might be good times for sending emails. On the flip side, you can do some email testing by sending different send times and seeing how your audience reacts to those send times, and then maybe using that as a guide to when you post on Facebook. We often see this with B2B and B2C companies, for example. There's a different rhythm of how we interact with B2C companies as compared to how we interact with B2B companies, and so that might be helpful. Headline testing. This is a real challenge. What is going to work best on Facebook, right? And so one way to do headline testing is with subject line testing. There's a bit of an analogy there. The great thing about subject line testing is it's a lot easier to reach validity than other types of testing because the subject line and that open rate is one of the first interactions people have with you. So if you have a winning email subject line, try that on your Facebook ads. At the same time, you can also see if you notice some Facebook ads that are really effective or even some Facebook updates that are really effective, try to use that in your subject lines and in your email in general. Image testing. This is really great. So Facebook is a very, very visual format, and it's great to see what email images get high click-through. And you can use those email images in your Facebook, and then vice versa, what ads or what perhaps posts get a lot of likes, and that might be something you want to use in your email. So now keep in mind, these are some high-level tips. You should definitely test them because one threat as we go through is you could also have very different audiences on email and social media. So it's important to test and to see are the things that are resonating on Facebook resonating on email, or are these very different audiences that actually act differently and are two different segments. This is something that I really like. Using what we call social proof. That's Dr. Robert Cialdini came up with that. I did not. But using social proof in your emails, showing that others like something, others are interested in it, and therefore you may be interested too. This is great for Crocs, for example. Crocs probably has hundreds and hundreds of products. I'm surprised by that. I thought they were all just those plastic Crocs, but you can see different products there. And so not only does it help them decide which products to put in their emails, the ones in this case that were most liked on Facebook, most tweeted, or most pinned, it offers that social proof to your audience saying, hey, some random marketer didn't select this. Your peers did. People just like you say this is the most popular product, so take a look at these. And mining social chatter. This is great. We hear about social media listening. So if you think back in the minds of marketers, say 40, 50 years ago, and they say, boy, wouldn't it be great to just overhear some of those conversations that our audiences have? Wouldn't that be so awesome just to hear what they're saying over the fence and by the water cooler? And now, in some ways, we can. So definitely look at how your products are being talked about, how your industry is talking about, what different targets are talking about different aspects, even setting up some Google alerts, setting up some search terms on Twitter, and then use that to guide how you're going to communicate through email.
And we have a great example of this from an industry perspective session with Joel Book of Exact Target. He gave some great examples of Dreamfield's Pasta, who use their Facebook page to convert their fans into email subscribers, and they don't even have to leave Facebook in order to do so. And the other example he gave was Crocs. They're getting a lot of love today, where their fans would submit to their sign up for their emails, and then they were led to a subscriber preferences page so that they were able to specifically say which deal of the week preference they wanted. And Book reported that each week Crocs converts over 500 of their Facebook fans to email subscribers, which is pretty impressive.
We have a question here on hashtag Sherpa webinar from Prospector Marketing, social and email, any suggested tools. So if you're not familiar with Marketing Sherpa, we stay vendor agnostic. We don't recommend any specific vendor, but I would, in answer to that question, I would encourage you to do this. Marketers always feel challenged that they cannot do something because they don't have that specific tool or that magic thing that makes it all easy for them. And so one way you can get started is use free tools and use that as a proof of concept or as a trial to show make a business case to your leaders for why you need that expensive and shiny tool. So like we said, in this case, sometimes it's as easy as just getting involved, getting on Facebook and seeing where people are and learning from them and seeing how they're interacting and doing it in a very manual process at first. Maybe just having an intern or an administrative assistant logging different Facebook interactions, going on Twitter, searching different terms, getting involved on Pinterest, getting involved on these different things. And then if you can show, hey, this is actually generating ROI, this is actually increasing our interaction, that's a great proof of concept and a great proof point to get the budget you need to buy some of the really cool, shiny tools that are out there. So takeaway number 2, segmenting for success. So we had our Marketing Sherpa email awards. And at our Marketing Sherpa email awards, the best in show winner was NFL.com, and they had a great example of personalization and segmentation. I wanted to share with you today because when we think about the NFL, sometimes people struggle with segmentation. Look at this map. It is almost the perfect example of segmentation, right? So you might be a company that has 2 or 3 different products or 2 or 3 different prospect types. The NFL, it's perfect. Depending on usually where you live or where you are from, they've got, 32 different segments that they can target. And so what the NFL did is they wanted to get really involved with their audience, make sure that they knew they were resonating with their team preference because, for example, if you, like me, are a Jaguars fan, you probably don't care what's going on with the Seahawks or something like that. So it's a perfect example of segmenting so you deliver relevant content. And if we see an example of one of their emails right here, what they did is the areas in green you can see, those are the areas that they personalized. They personalize those areas to the different marketers, and the areas that are not in green, those are the areas that were general NFL.com. So you can see they also had a countdown clock on there, which is really interesting to make it very real time. And then, so not only was it segmented based on the team that they were interested in, but also based on the time and when that game was kicking off. And you can see another example from their newsletter where some of the content was more general, where they did have some of that segmented content, but they also had some more general content from NFL.com. And they also measured what people had clicked on NFL.com to see, okay, what have they already been exposed to, what content haven't they already been exposed to. So it's pretty advanced, but it gives you, we hope that you don't feel like you have to replicate it exactly. As to the other question about tools, you have to know that don't always focus on the tool, focus on the general idea. And again, when it comes to the NFL, that segmentation is so key and so important. So let's take a look at the results from that campaign. They had a very impressive increase, 121% increase in opens, 26% more click-throughs, 9% more mobile opens. So again, the big idea here, segmentation. It's very easy for the NFL to see these different people like these different fans. Who are your fans? What are they fans of? What different types of shoes or different product lines? If you're a B2B company, what different people in an organization are you targeting? If you're a B2C company, what different people in a family are you targeting? So for example, in my family, you might be targeting my daughter for a certain purchase, but you might be targeting me as an influencer as well. So keep that in mind. Before we go on to takeaway number 3, relevancy, we want to talk to you about our next summit, Optimization Summit 2013, coming up in Boston. And our keynotes are really exciting. They're the team behind, when you think about what the top marketing campaign was from last year, no matter what your political affiliations were, the 2012 presidential election, huge marketing campaign. We've got the team that raised $500 million from email marketing A/B testing. $500 million just from email marketing A/B testing. That's Toby Fallsgraf, their email director, and Amelia Showalter, the director of digital analytics. So we'll be in Boston May 20th to 23rd. Hope to see you there. You can go to marketingsherpa.com/optimization to learn more and save $500 before March 29th. So with that, let's hop into takeaway number 3.
So what we have for takeaway number 3 is relevancy in customer conversations is key. And for that, we have a session from Matt Bailey of SiteLogic, and where that applies is, Clint McLaughlin said in his live ops session, look at your emails and ask, is there any communication with the customer, or am I just interrupting their day? And that's what Matt Bailey was talking about in his session. The main obstacle to providing recent and relevant content, he said, is the analytics involved. So he told a really interesting personal story about his antique VW Bug, and he broke a part in his brake line that was a $7 part, easy to replace. He started looking online for it, and he ended up getting all of this email communication that was untimely, impersonal, and totally irrelevant to him. People wanting him to look at different kinds of cars or car wax, and just wasn't what he needed. And finally, he ends up getting this email communication that was personal, timely, and relevant. And he actually ended up purchasing an entire disc brake conversion kit. It was exactly what he needed at the time. He could have bought a $7 part, and he ended up spending way more because of these 3 elements. And the conversational events that he recommends kind of building your email communications around are browsing, cart abandonment, product reviews, thank you anniversary, reactivation, and replenishment. And those can be opportunities to facilitate conversation and sales using transactional data, web analytics, and contact history. Takeaway number 4 is use every opportunity you have to re-engage before list cleansing. And this was a really interesting session with Diana Primo of CNET, and she spoke about a win-back and list cleansing tandem campaign where they first segmented the list for testing, and then they started testing email. They sent out a win-back sweepstakes email first to try to reclaim some of their inactive subscribers. And then finally, they sent out a last chance list cleanse email before removing those who didn't re-engage. So the content of the emails focused on an event CNET subscribers would find highly relevant, tickets to the 2012 International CES, and along with airfare. And so Promos said that their approach to this kind of campaign is, a lot of companies like the big numbers, she said. But CNET takes the mindset that we're not tied to numbers, we're tied to how much engagement we can drive back to the site. So for this campaign, they use self-segmentation through subscription preference and behavioral segmentation based off of activity or inactivity. 120 days for the sweepstakes offer email and 180 plus days for the list cleanse and last chance. So this is their list, their re-engaging email, trying to win back. We miss you, please come back was the subject line. So at that point, 2 weeks later, they sent out their last chance email sent to those who had been inactive for over 80 days. With the subject line, is this goodbye? CNET will miss you. They were able to re-engage 8.57% of their inactive user base using this method. And CNET, Promo emphasized in her presentation that marketers really have to be committed to cleansing before they start out this kind of campaign, and there has to be follow-through if inactive subscribers don't re-engage. Dan?
Yeah, we have a question here from Martin. What's the best way to clean a dirty opt-in list provided by a client? I like how he names that, a dirty opt-in list. Well, Matt Bird came and talked at Marketing Sherpa Email Summit. He had this challenge, and he recommends proactive list hygiene. Even with a small list, he generated big results. Let's take a look at how he did it. So all this stuff we talked about email is almost pointless if no one's going to get your emails, if it doesn't get to the inbox, right? And he found out, look at this, a 23.2% soft bounce rate. That is a nightmare. So he had to dig in and determine the cause. What he did is he identified the profile. Again, like when we talk about segmentation, he's looking for a type of person that is likely to complain. The reason for those soft bounce rates is because people are marking your emails as spam through Yahoo, through Gmail, whatever, and then you're less likely to get through there. So he wanted to find out who are those people. He called them scrubs. He actually sang the TLC song No Scrubs from the 90s. That was probably my favorite part. But anyway, he discovered that most of those scrubs, most of that profile, they've been inactive for long periods of time before they complain. So it's not like they complained right away. You know, that was at the end of a long process. First, they were inactive. So he removed those scrubs from his list, and he implemented list hygiene as a constant ongoing process by determining what that profile was, keeping a look at those inactive. So now this took some internal education. His CMO wasn't really impressed by it. Who wants to kick people off their email list? We work so hard to get people on our email list. But here's what he found, and here's what he learned in the process. That really, he was only removing those who are unlikely to take action anyway, right? So having those on the list really just inflates the number. It's not like they're going to act on your emails. The upside, from a budget perspective, is a lot of ESPs charge based on how many emails you send. So he was sending less emails to people who weren't going to react anyway. In the future, that helped prevent large blocks like this. He was able to get better deliverability, and it helped maintain a high-quality list for them and also for their advertisers. They happen to have advertisers. And so if we look at the results here, the opens and clicks maintained or increased, and the spam complaint rate went down 76%. So take a look. Don't just be focused on that number on your email list. Take a look at how active they are, and make sure you're really serving them so they don't mark you as spam.
All right, here we go. Takeaway number 5. Let buying behavior be your guide. So Lauren McDonald of Silverpop presented this in his session. There's 3 different types of email marketing. There's mass marketing, where your customers are a single audience. You know, batch and blast would be in this. Direct marketing, doing segmentations and then send, where your customers are broken up into different groups. And then there's behavioral marketing, where your customers are treated as individuals. You know, this person is a longtime customer. This person likes to buy this product. You know, this person is inactive. So he listed the following behavior clues. You know, when they registered, browsing, purchasing, if they're a repeat customer, if they're inactive or disengaged. So what McDonald said was that all of this behavior is a marketer's guide to, and adding up all of these different clues should lead you to humanize your sends and make intelligent decisions about what conversation you want to have with your customers. The personal example he gave was that, you know, demographics combined with preferences and behaviors will provide a more accurate picture of your consumer. So giving himself an example, he is a married man from California who regularly purchases shirts. One day he buys a dress. Now, with only behavioral data to go off of, the conclusion is that he's either female or a cross-dresser, neither of which I believe is true. So if you pepper that with demographics and preference, the more likely conclusion is that the dress was purchased as a gift. And you can give him more accurate communications if you take all of those things into consideration.
So we have a question here from Jim. What is the biggest mistake people are making in today's environment? And I think Courtney really hit the nail on the head when she talked about that approach of Lauren McDonald not being a cross-dresser. Because when we talk about email, we're talking about a lot of the different processes involved and deliverability and automation, but there's also the content in that email. And you can never look at that content in a vacuum. There is no such thing as good content or bad content. There's good content or bad content for this person, or good content or bad content for that person. And so you have to make sure, as we talked about in the segmentation examples, that you're delivering the content to the right people. And then the second part of that, when we talk about relevant content, good content, is the timing. You have to be able to deliver that content at the right time. That's what ultimately makes good timing. And I think a lot of people are challenged by that and are making that mistake, because when they send an email out to their list, even if they're unsegmented, even if they don't care about timing, there's going to be some people on that list that are going to respond, right? And so that's always going to hurt them. And they'll end up sending more and more emails because they have to get that less and less response. But what they don't see is there's that much bigger amount of people on their list who it's irrelevant. The content doesn't work for them, and so they're going to unsubscribe, or like in the Wedding Wire example, they're going to click spam. So don't just focus on your content in a vacuum. Focus on delivering valuable content, but focus on delivering valuable content to certain people at certain times. And we've got a great example of that coming up next, because we have another question here by Martin. Oh, I'm sorry, it's by Larry. Would like to hear best practice schedule for autoresponders, frequency, timing, offers, thanks. And when I think of autoresponders, one of the best people I think about is Jermaine Griggs. And he presented how his Hear and Play Music, which is a very, very small B2C company, used some really impressive autoresponders and used automation in such an impressive way to react to people and to find out what they wanted and when they wanted it. And what we're going to talk about, we also have a question about from Koya, how do you approach B2B email marketing differently than B2C? We'll get to the differences in just a second, but let's get to the similarities for a second, okay? This is a B2C company, and what he's talking about is really perfect for B2Bs as well, because he's focused on recency, frequency, and monetary, RFM. So how recently did the customer purchase, right? You know, when someone purchased recently, they're pretty engaged with you. They're pretty interested in you. They're likely to purchase again. This is also true for B2B, though, because it might not necessarily just be a purchase. That purchase might have been they gave you their email address for that white paper, or they gave you their email address, or gave you their time to be on a webinar. And so when you're looking to segment and when you're looking to send automated sends, look at how recently they interacted with you. Then frequency. How often did they purchase? How often are they interacting with you? How often are they clicking through on your emails? How often are they opening your emails, downloading your offers? How often are they converting? A question we often get is, how much email should I send? How often should I send it? When should I send it? And a lot of that can be answered by the frequency of how your audience engages with you. You can see that through your ESP. You can see that through some of those engagement metrics. That's where your segmentation comes in. Those who are engaging with you more frequently, you can likely send more to. Those who are engaging with you less frequency, you should likely send less to. They are more likely to become inactive. They are more likely to be spam. And that's where some of the re-engagement campaigns that Courtney was talking about, that Diana Primo from CNET launched, can really help you. Last, monetary. How much has the customer spent? Will you deal with different customers at different price points differently? And this is where you can get really specific and segment to them. So, for example, if you notice a certain customer is always purchasing items that are on sale, then that customer you might want to only send promos and coupons and those sorts of things to. Now, I got this offer from J. Crew the other day, which I don't think was for me, it was probably for my wife, but for a personal shopper. J. Crew offered their personal shopper. And that's a great example where they probably segmented and saw, here's someone who's buying more, not buying discounts, buying at a higher level. And again, that's where you can segment and send them something that's more relevant to them. And frankly, it's also more high margin to you. So again, this works for B2B as well. When you look at some of your favorite customers and how much they spent and how often they spent, you can send them a different offer than some of your newer customers, some of your smaller customers. And keep in mind, too, this doesn't just happen before they buy. This also happens after they buy, keeping them engaged, so they can buy again or they can recommend you to a friend. So here's how we did it. Here's wrapping up Jermaine Griggs' very impressive automation to a few steps. He's collecting the key pieces of data to get the conversation started, right? For him, some of those key pieces of data were he has very many different music lessons you can learn. So you can learn piano, you can learn gospel, you can learn opera. And when someone clicks through on a certain email or when someone opens a certain email with a certain subject line, he can then append that data to that person, and he knows, well, they are more likely interested in gospel than in rock music. That's what they want to learn. And then he uses his CRM to continually act upon that data and tag the data. And again, he will replace that data with the most recent tag, because recency is so important. So perhaps they used to be in the gospel, but now all their newest, latest thing is rock. Well, rock becomes a new tag, and then he sends them the rock offer because that's the thing they were most interested in. Even if they click through gospel 10 times and rock only twice, if the rock are the two more recent ones, the rock and roll music are the two more recent ones, then that's more likely what they're interested in. And then building out different paths with sequences for your most active users to follow. So this is where you're not just batch and blasting and sending the same emails to the same people. You're sending different paths for people based on what their interests were, because they're telling you their interests with their actions, with their behaviors, how they're interacting with you. I think a really interesting thing he did, we're only talking about email marketing now, but he really made it a multimedia campaign, right? So he would send direct mail campaigns to some of his higher purchases. If he knew their mailing addresses, he would send them something special. Again, not to everyone, because that's really expensive. But if you get a sense of who's engaging with your emails, then you get a sense of who should I invest in, who should I send that to. And also, even for B2B, he says companies are people. Keep a personal tone. When you can really automate, when you can really tie into what people's interests are, you don't have to sound so much like a company who doesn't know anything anymore. You can sound like a personal friend, or you can sound like someone actually, or a company actually engaging and interacting with their interests. So you asked for it, you got it. That's, we just got through 54 slides as quickly as we could. That's based on hours and hours and hours of email summit information. I hope you find that helpful. I am Daniel Burstein. With me is Courtney. Thanks for joining us, Courtney.
Thank you, everyone.
And thanks for joining us in the Marketing Strip audience.